Question 11 says, in the concluding paragraph, the author says, hence, the tilt towards more welfare spending. Hence. Here, hence clearly means that the author has mentioned something before, and this is the conclusion. Hence, the tilt. Tilt means there is a proclivity or there is an inclination towards welfare spending. Which of these options best explains the meaning of the sentence? Now, if you read the part, it says, hence the tilt towards more welfare spending. And before that, the author talks about, but we cannot ignore the negative aspects. Unemployment remains a huge challenge. Besides, labor force participation rate is low. India's ranking in the World Hunger Index is abysmal. Inequality in income, wealth, access to quality education, health facilities is widening and is at unacceptable levels. And hence, welfare spending. So what is the author's meaning? What is the author trying to say? The author is saying that we are spending on welfare because we have a lot of problems that we have to still tackle. Now, option 1 says the author is trying to explain the reason for increasing fiscal pressure. Not really relevant. India has to spend more on welfare due to the widening gap in income and access to education and health. Yes, definitely this is the reason. That is what the author is trying to say. The increase in welfare spending has only resulted in inequality. It has not resulted in inequality. In fact, it has probably reduced it. This is not the reason. The increase in welfare spending has resulted in increasing inequality. Again, similar option, and therefore the correct answer has to be option B. Question 12 says, which of the following is an assumption or belief in the author's claim that agriculture is much less dependent on the vagaries of the weather? Vagaries means changing patterns of weather. The statement says, which of the following is an assumption in the author's claim that agriculture is much less dependent on the changing pattern of weather. So if somebody says that X is less dependent on Y, which of the following is the belief of the author? X is less dependent. So one thing is very clear. When I say X is less dependent on Y, one thing is very clear that X still depends on Y, but less. Option 1 says India has finally become self-sufficient. Less dependent doesn't mean self-sufficient. There are good irrigation facilities available in every region. Good irrigation facilities available? Yes, but in every region, then we would not say less dependent. We would say not dependent at all. So this option is also out. Agriculture is affected by the unpredictability of the weather. Yes, if it's less dependent on the vagaries of weather, means unpredictability is still there, but it is less. So it is still there. Definitely an assumption. India's focus has shifted from agriculture to other industries, again irrelevant, and therefore the correct assumption has to be option C. Question 13 says, which of the following cannot be inferred from the passage? Cannot be means 3 options can be, 1 cannot be. Option 1 says farmers have diversified to more soil and climate appropriate crops to lessen their dependence on weather. Option 2 says the author believes that a military coup cannot succeed in the Indian system. Foreign investors have confidence in India's growth potential. And the last one says the author supports the Soviet model of development. Now, if you read the relevant part, you can clearly see that the author does not really support that. In fact, there is no information to figure that out. India was influenced by Soviet planning model of development. One could argue that it should have been abandoned much earlier than when we actually did. India also missed the bus, unlike her East Asian neighbors, on capitalizing on labor-intensive export-led growth. But after the shock of 1991, the economy opened up dramatically. Does it show anywhere that the author is for or against the Soviet planning? At the max, the author is saying that probably, as people say, we should have not followed it for a very long time. But is he for or against? That's not very obvious. And therefore, in this question, option D says author supports the Soviet model of development. This is something we cannot infer. The author does not support. The author probably in fact says we did not do a good job there. So probably he's slightly against it, but not support definitely. Now other options can be easily inferred. If you look at choices, choice 1, option 1 says look at the information that we have, and we can see all the options can be supported. Foreign investors have poured in $500 billion into India. So foreign investors are very happy with Indian economy. Then it says a military coup is inconceivable. So military coup in India is not going to take place. And about the farmers, it says agriculture is much less dependent on the vagaries of the weather, and diversification towards more climate, soil and market appropriate crops is evident. All these options have been mentioned by the author. So we can easily say that option A, B and C we can easily infer, but not D, and therefore the correct answer has to be option D. Question 14 says, look at what happened to our twin born on the same day. Which of the following can be inferred from the above sentence? Very easy. We are talking about our twin born on the same day. So we are talking about the country, and we are talking about another country that was born on the same day, and we are talking about it in a negative way, that we did a good job, they did not. So let's look at it. The author is referring to Pakistan, whose democracy shares many similar traits. Not really, we are talking about something negative. The lack of military coup is not a common feature of the South Asian nations as exemplified by Pakistan's experience. Lack of military coup is not common means what? Military coup is common. So in these countries, Pakistan and other countries, military coup has been taking place. The author actually says that. That means the author would agree with this. We can infer this, that military coup is very, very normal in other countries, but in India it is not conceivable. Author mentions that. South Asian countries have experienced several military coups in the past. How many military coups? We have no idea about it. And the statement is about twin. Military coups are unthinkable, inconceivable in India as it is South Asian nation. Very clearly this is true, but not twin born on the same day. The statement is about Pakistan, and that means the correct answer should mention the twin country, which is option B. Question 15 is quite easy. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Option 1 says 1991 was an economically rough year for India. If you read the correct part of the passage, it talks about if you look at the correct part, it talks about the International Monetary Fund, a far cry from having to go with a begging bowl to the IMF on the brink of forex bankruptcy in 1991. So 1991 was a very rough year for us economically. This is something we can directly infer. We don't have to do any more reading beyond this, and therefore the correct answer straight away can be considered as option A. Other options are very clearly, easily you can eliminate. India and her East Asian neighbors capitalized on labor-intensive and export-led growth. India, in fact, did not do that. Author says that. India has the largest forex reserve. We have no information about it. Women form a major part of India's labor force. Again, this is something we have no information to support. And therefore, the correct answer has to be option